introducing yourselves. Lauren, will you kick us off? Is that all right?
I'm Lauren.
Hey, Lauren. You're cute.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I direct summer camp out in Nice, Michigan. Not summer camp. A few weekends ago.
You're the one that's on the stage?
I was on the stage. Yes.
That's kind of a big deal.
You did a good job.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And she did it 3 times because we had 3 services.
Whoa.
It's not my favorite thing, but yes, that is me.
Yeah, Robbie.
Nice. I'm Emily, and I'm making music to the end.
Oh,
That's me.
Awesome, Robbie. Thank you.
I'm Elena, and I'm back for the summer. So now I'm back, so I'm stoked to be here.
So sweet. We're introducing ourselves, and it was just the most embarrassing moment. They all went.
I'm Isabella, and Melissa's like,
Yeah, something about yourself.
I've lived in over 20 houses.
Dang, girl.
Nice.
Hey, she was there.
And I believe
Yeah, but she lives here now. Yes, awesome. Young man with the beard. Hi, Zach. Awesome. All right, sweet. Thanks, crew. And then this is Nick, for those who don't know, although hopefully you got that because we were serving today. And we are just going to go through, and I wanted Nick to be able to share just some of the heart about Flow and how the ministry came about, and the hope. I think, I mean, you could share some of your intention for this time, but I think for me, what I loved seeing when I first met Nick was like, here's this guy who's passionate about these activities, biking and skating and stuff, and cares deeply about kids, and has found, and obviously loves the Lord, and has found this unique expression and way to like incorporate all of those together, and I think does ministry in some unique ways, of which you even saw today. And so my hope and heart for us as we listen is not just to think, oh, how am I going to start a BMX ministry or a skateboard ministry, but man, I have some passions. I have some interests. The Lord has wired me uniquely. What if there's a way that these passions and these things that He's given me actually also fit with how He wants me to be a steward of these gifts in the kingdom. So, yeah, anything that you hope to like kick it off, like as we go, anything you want to say?
I feel like I can just give away the one thing that like right, kind of like tell the joke.
Yeah, the punchline.
Yeah, I give you like the punchline before the joke's even told. Of this whole thing, and like if you walk away with nothing, I hope you walk away with, I'm a firm believer in God wasting absolutely nothing, and I really do believe that. It doesn't waste our successes, He does not waste our failures, the mishaps, our mistakes. It doesn't waste any of those things, and has not wasted anything in my life, including my passions, and a firm believer in the goodness of God that is just littered throughout Scripture. And I was literally weeping this morning while reading the Psalms, Psalm 33, like 4 through, I would love to read it to you, and hopefully I can get through it. But like, it just littered with God's goodness. So those are like such anchors in my life, in me and my wife's life, of believing wholeheartedly in the goodness of God and the fact that this good God wastes nothing. And He's so good, He's gooder than my stupidity. He just is. And I really, really believe that. And I feel like when you believe that in your core, there really isn't anything that you can't do that God isn't going to use. And I don't know if that's true or not. It's been true. I've seen it time and time again proven true in my life, and I'm going to continue to believe that. That being said, nothing that I've done in my life has ever been comfortable. It's been fun, but it's not been comfortable. So I guess that's kind of how I would start it. I'm just going to jump right in and be like, yeah.
I love that. It just made me think of that Romans 8:28 passage, which sometimes I think can be, even misquoted, but just this idea with what you said, he wastes no experiences, our successes or our sin. Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things, God works for the good for those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. Verse 29, I think, as it begins to like form that out, and it says, for those God foreknew, he also predestined. Don't get locked up on those words just yet. To be conformed to the likeness of his son. So basically, the idea is for all those who know him, he's using all things to form us to become like Jesus, which is exactly what you just said.
100%.
I just think that's such a cool promise that we can cling to. Now, this is one of those that I also want to be careful of. Like, someone's going through a hard thing, they just lost their, loved one, and it's like, well, God, he works all things for good. It's like,
don't do that. It's a kook move. It's a kook move. Sometimes the best thing to do is just shut up.
There's also another thing I love about Nick. He's like, I didn't pull no punches. I'm just going to tell you.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't be that one.
I may not have learned how to read until I was like 14 years old, but my social intelligence has been off the charts since I was a little kid. Like, just don't do that.
And that's not the move you do.
Yeah, totally. It's not the move you do.
However, still true.
Yeah.
But you want to do that with tact. But I think in this purpose for what we're talking about, that verse, I think, highlights this reality that all the things of your past and present, the Lord is using to form you to become more like Jesus. So,
can you continue? Can you read verse 31?
Yeah. Sorry. Yep, I got lost. 31. What then shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us?
So that verse right there is, I get choked up thinking about it. One of my first kids, as a young youth leader, his name was Mark Mitchell, and Mark Mitchell looked anything but an 8th grader. He was tall, huge. The only reason why he like sounded like an 8th grader was because he kind of had this like silly lisp that was almost laughable, but then like his bigness like made you not want to laugh at it because he didn't look like an 8th grader. He looked like an 18-year-old man kind of thing. And I remember the first night that I met Mark at junior high group, and a friend of mine was the intern, and he jokingly said, because he didn't think anybody would actually do this, hey, it's Nick and Evan's first time. First person to go over and punch Nick in the face is going to get 5 stuff bucks, which was like youth group money that you could like get at the snack bar or whatever. And out of nowhere, mind you, I'm 17 years old. I'm still very, very rough around the edges. I'm very much more a like vegan straight edge hardcore kid than I am like a follower of Jesus. And out of nowhere, this flying fist comes and hits me in the face. And it's Mark Mitchell. Okay? And I was like, immediately, I'm no longer at youth group. I'm at a show, and somebody just punched me, and I'm going to drop kick this person. Like, right here, right now. I turn around, and it's this kid, and doesn't look like a kid. He looks like a man, and long story short, end up falling in love with this kid. Like, I love Mark. He became my kid. Like, I was like, I don't know, I just get Mark. And
but did you drop kick him?
I did not drop kick him. I did not drop kick him because this is what happened. This is what happened. My buddy Josh knew me so well. He like drops the mic, runs over and grabs me like, dude, it's a kid. Dude, it's a kid. And I was like, need a minute kind of thing. That verse right there was his all-time favorite verse. And I bring up Mark because Mark is very much like the type of kid that that Flo reaches. and that Flow is really, really good at reaching. That me and my staff are really, really good at reaching. We've had 1 million marks. And sadly, like a lot of them amazingly came to know Jesus and gave their life to Christ. I think Mark actually had that verse tattooed on him. Sadly, Mark lost his life in a really tragic way years and years ago. But you were reading that, I was like, oh man, Mark Mitchell.
That's wild.
And yeah, Flow's kind of like always been like the bad news bears of youth ministries. Like it just has been like the kind of the outsider kid, finding hope and love in God. So yeah,
It's kind of cool. It makes me think of like the disciples that Jesus called.
Totally.
Right? Where what are the brothers? They're called sons of thunder. Like they might have been some rowdy boys, right?
Yeah.
That Jesus called them to himself. The fact that they weren't already following a rabbi would tell us culturally that they were kind of the not good enoughs. Because in that culture, you would study the text, you would learn, you would memorize, the first 5 books of the Bible, and a rabbi would come in and would quiz you if you were good enough at, understanding the Old Testament, and then they would say, come follow me. So when Jesus calls the disciples, come follow me, and the fact that they're fishermen reveals to us that most likely they didn't make the cut to follow the rabbi. Because the rabbi would say if they weren't good enough, hey, you love God, but go do your father's trade. So the fact that in Mark 1, the disciples are already fishing tells us that they probably failed the test. And those are the ones that Jesus picked.
Yeah, and upgrades their life entirely.
He says, I'm going to take, kind of interesting, Mark chapter 1, I see you're fishermen, but I'm going to take you and you will follow me, and you'll what? You'll fish for people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what you're doing, this is your passion, this is your life, this is your orientation, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to point it towards the kingdom. So it's kind of cool. We see that even in there with what you just said. Okay, tell us a little bit about just Flow and the vision, mission, overall.
Because it's later in the day. I can get long-winded if I don't have some notes. So I brought in our mission and our vision and some of our core values. So I'd love to share that with you guys. Our mission is pretty simple. That is Flow is reaching the discounted and forgotten kids in our community and providing them with a safe place where they're loved, valued, and worthy of belonging. And as we partner with them in exploring their purpose through action sports and the power of play and the arts, we're developing future community leaders that are empowered by love and belonging.
So cool.
Yeah.
With that, Marcel, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot for a moment, because I think it's one thing to hear like, he's got the mission statement, right?
Yeah, totally.
But Marcel has volunteered with Flow over the years. How would you speak into that vision? So I'm not like quoting it, but just how you see reaching the disenfranchised and what have you seen, Marcel, with how Flow does that? And
I never talk about Flow, and I think somebody in this room already heard me saying this. But anytime I talk about Flow, I say that Flow, in my opinion, is one of the most relevant and effective youth ministries in town. And I think part of that is because Flow is not waiting for the kids to come to them. Like, Flow is not waiting for the kids to come, but Flow is going to them. And one of the things that Flow does is they go to juvenile hall. Like, those kids physically are not able to come to Flow. Flow goes up there, takes BMX bikes, skateboards, all this stuff, and God literally changed their lives. Like, we've had a kid who went from being a martyr to be a follower of Jesus, right? There's so many stories like that. So I remember Nick was actually, if you guys heard my story how I got here to Santa Cruz, Nick was one of the two people I knew in Santa Cruz. But even the way I met Nick was, the way we became friends was like this. We were in West Virginia attending a sports ministry conference, to which I was not working with a sports ministry at the time, so I felt like I was out of place. And then they had this huge mini ramp that you're supposed to, this huge mini mega ramp. And you're supposed to go down, I'm talking like probably higher than the ceiling or something.
Yeah, it was tall.
Yeah. You're supposed to drop that thing and then you go up the ramp and then you fly and then you land somewhere. I've never done anything like that. But everybody's doing that, so I go up the ramp with my BMX acting like I know what I'm doing. And I get there and I look down and I'm like totally chickening out. I'm chickening out, but all the other leaders are like, come on Marcel, you can do it. And I'm like, I can't do it. But yeah, okay, I'll be right there. And Nick comes over and he's like, you don't have to do it. And I was like, thank you. But I'm saying that because I think that speaks a lot on who Nick is and what flow is. Because all I needed was somebody to be like, hey dude, you don't need to be good at that. It's okay to just admit that that's not your thing and just walk down. And I think that's how flow gets so many kids to just fall in love with Jesus, because they realize, I don't need to be the best at everything. I don't need to be like everybody else. There is a God who loves me. That's one answer.
Thanks,
No,
man.
I love that, because I think I want to ask you in a second, but I think part of it is the power to like see people. So go to Luke chapter 19. Many of us know this passage because I think there's a song about it. So if you're a kid, you know about Zacchaeus, right? Luke chapter 19, verses 1 and following. I won't preach it all because I want to make sure I make more some time. But Luke 19, 1 and following, it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. One of the things that I love about that is, to Marcel's point, Jesus actually went to where the people were. If anybody had the opportunity to lock themselves up in some holy building up on the hill, it was Jesus. But Jesus was amongst the common people. He enters Jericho. He's passing through. And so I love that, like on mission, right? A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. So in this culture, we're going to learn a little bit more, but like he's the outcast. Basically, he has partnered with the Roman government, which is an evil government, which means he's betrayed his own people because he's Jewish. So now he's an outcast from his own people. He's partnered with the evil government, and he's taxing people and potentially getting wealthy on the side. So homie's a dirtbag, right?
Total dirtbag.
And it says, he wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up to him and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and he welcomed him. All the people saw this and they began to mutter, he's gone to be the guest of a sinner. Everybody in the crowd sees Jesus coming. They're excited. This is why there's a crowd there, because Jesus is coming. And Jesus picks the wrong person. It's essentially like Jesus coming into town and the church is like, hey, we're over here. And he shows up at the corner bar. And they're like, we got the wrong address. We're over here. And Jesus, when he eats with them, to share a meal, to enter one's whole house in that culture, is essentially to say, I approve of you. It's just like radical. Because they're like, Zacchaeus hasn't repented, Zacchaeus hasn't made amends, said he's sorry, hasn't given any money back. And I think that's something that I see in what you're just saying is like flow goes to the unlikely and unites themselves to them and says, we don't care what anybody thinks, like these are our people. Your Instagram and your website is what? Flow
Loves you.
And I see people know that, like, that's how they identify. Flow loves you. It's a cool tagline with that. So Jesus unites himself with them. But get this. What did it look like for Jesus to walk through a crowd of people? This actually kind of blows my mind that he like passed by people, but then has eyes to see the one. I mean, it's a big enough crowd that it says Zacchaeus had to like run. So he had to get up to a run. How long does it take to get up to a run and then climb a tree to see Jesus? And Jesus walks by everyone for the one. And I think this is, some of the things that I have seen in Flow that have just impressed me, and I think it speaks so much to your character, but I think obviously what the Lord has done is like, you guys live for the one. With that, Nick, how do you seek to accomplish that? You got your vision, what Marcel said about how? What's that look like? I heard the paper, but flesh it out.
Yeah. I mean, I could share a couple of our core values, because I feel like our core values really do answer that. Some of our core values are investing in the diamonds in the rough, because we really do believe that every kid has the potential to be amazing. When God created us in his image, that was not anything like, just like, it's cool, this is the only thing I really know to like, look like, so like, you're just gonna make them like this. No, like, this is amazing. I trip out at times about silly things, simple things, and but I get curious and wonder, like, what would it be like if we fanboyed or girled every person that we ran into because they're a one-off. There's nobody else like them. There's nobody else that's going to let's say everybody has the potential and the opportunity to say yes to God, right? We read that throughout Scripture. You read it heavily in Romans. Like, everybody's going to have an opportunity to respond, whether they've heard the name or not. Everybody has an opportunity to respond. What if we saw people like that and maybe even responded before they even have a chance to respond, like seeing the image of God in people, in the people that we see. And when you do that long enough, it wrecks you. It wrecks the way that you see people. Just like watching porn can wreck the way that you look at people, as like, rather than people, you look at them as objects. This like beautiful filter that God gives us, that we get to look at people through his eyes, it wrecks you because you can't help but see an image of God. Not to say that you can't be angry at images of God. Trust me, I get angry at images of God all of the time. It doesn't stop that. But there is also this like frustrating like block of like, I can't help but not see this image of God. It's one of the ways we're able to go into youth detention centers and talk with kids who have taken other kids' lives, taken some of our own students' lives. Like Marcel was referencing a student who life was lost. One of our former Flow students was killed at a party up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And the kid who killed him was at juvenile hall, happened to come to a handful of our church services, and on one of those church services gave his life to Jesus. Like a full-on 180. Like there were tears, like very much present. I think we were talking about like how God is more than just a God of second chances, but third and fourth and like millionth chances, right? And that nothing is unredeemable, including our stupidity and our own evilness and our own frustration and our own madness. And this kid was completely undone by that. I think we were talking about too, like the upgrades that God brings to our life. And he was like, dude, I want that. I don't necessarily have the words other than I want that. Like full circle. This is a student who I did their memorial and then had the opportunity to lead the person who took their life to Jesus. That's mind-boggling, dude, because God wastes nothing. Seriously. And he's not afraid to go into scary places. Like when we have God, we don't have to be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid of certain things. Like don't climb Half Dome, don't be free climbing Half Dome. Just don't do that. Okay? That's probably not a good idea. Unless you're an amazing climber. And then maybe you should do that because maybe that's what God has for you. I have no idea. But God is he's just not afraid to go into scary places. And especially if God is inviting you into a scary place, man, that is an invitation for just rich intimacy with the Father into something that he wants to do. So, that's just one of our core values. We invest in the diamonds in the rough. One of the things is, too, we recognize the power of play. Because we learn through play. That's just scientifically proven. The brain fires on all cylinders. Just tons and tons of neurological studies have zeroed in on how alive the brain comes and how quickly the brain heals when we are playing. When children play, I wholeheartedly believe it's one of the reasons why Jesus said that you are to have the faith of a child, that you are to what is it? Help me out, Zane.
Yeah, that's children. Matthew 18.
Matthew 18.
Great.
Yeah.
Is that it? Matthew chapter 18, verse 3.
Yeah, greatest in the kingdom. About that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And this is the best. Jesus is the worst he's the best at so many things and the worst at so many things. He's the best at everything, and he's the worst at things like marketing. The worst at marketing. He has the biggest crowd of his life, and he's like, "Hey, you guys got to eat my blood, or drink my blood, or eat my flesh." Mic drop, and then he no explanation, just leaves. And everybody's like, "That's gross."
Yeah.
And what does he mean?
Yeah.
And his disciples were only the ones that had the guts to ask him. And then he does this dumb, hilarious thing, and it's amazing. About that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked him, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And he called a little child to him and put the child among them. Which probably had to just already be Jesus has owned us so many times with so many of the questions that we've asked, and he's going to own us again with a freaking kid. You know what I mean? And we don't know if this is a boy, we don't know if this is a girl, but the bottom line is, at that time, if you were an adult man, you had status. Everybody else,
You don't even count the kids.
you don't even
in
count.
Census.
You literally don't even count. And Jesus is placing this kind of value on this human. Jesus called a little child to him and put the child among them. And he said, "I tell you the truth, unless you turn from your sins and become like a little children, you'll never get into the kingdom of heaven." This is wild. So anyone who becomes as humble as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And anyone who welcomes a little child like this on my behalf is welcoming me. But if you cause one of these little ones who trusts in me to fall into sin, it would be better for you to have a large millstone tied around your neck and thrown into the depths of the sea. That's so good. Very, very metal lyrics from Jesus.
And totally not a marketing scheme.
Totally not. Absolutely not.
I love that.
Absolutely not a marketing scheme. But yeah, recognizing the power of play. I think there's something playful about God. I really do. I saw this shirt today. It said God made art, or God, art was God's idea or something like that. And I was like, I don't love the shirt, but I love that little quote. That's just, yeah. And play is alongside of that. I think that play is just part of what God is like. So recognizing the power of play, that is definitely real. And not just play, but kingdom play. As Christians, we believe that God has a beautiful and amazing plan for every life. And we also recognize that we're not just ministering to Christian kids, but these are like pre-Christian kids. These kids aren't connected to a youth ministry. They're not connected to a church. But all of my youth pastor friends know that if they help out at Flow and they're building relationships, authentic relationships with kids, like, by all means, dude, like, poach these kids. Like, these aren't Flow's kids. These are like God's kids. And if God could use a ministry like Flow to create this community where these kids feel safe and values being added to their life and their families' lives, because I'll get to that in just a second, then you have an opportunity to build a relationship with them, then dude, invite them to your thing, invite them to your church, invite them to your community. Like, by all means, do that.
And I'll say something with that, just coming in from the outside and talking with pastors and youth pastors in the area. That's not just a slogan on a piece of paper, because every youth pastor or pastor that I've spoken with loves Flow. Now, for those, this is maybe getting a little nuanced, but, God established His church. He is working through His church, as in, the Christians around the world. Mm-hmm. But then there's also the local establishment of church. Like, there's churches here in Santa Cruz, and we're going to visit these churches, right? We are pushing for us, by the end of this, like wherever you go, that you would plug into a church, and actually not just a parachurch ministry. Love and Life is a parachurch ministry. We are not the church. We do not function as the church. Does that make sense? We come alongside the church, but we're not trying to replace the church. Mm-hmm. Nick as well with Flow. Sometimes parachurch ministries can end up being like, oh, hey, we're the end-all, be-all because we understand it and we can do it better. Para-church is meant to come alongside the church, meant to feed and support, because a parachurch ministry cannot do all the functions of a local church with pastors and elders and the structure given throughout Scripture. And I say that all to say, because that's one of the things that I've seen Nick do super well, is use his gifts, talents, passions, reach the margins, and then reconnect to churches. So for us, as we think about, maybe you're going to be involved in a parachurch ministry. That's rad. Make sure that it points back to a church.
Totally.
And if you're in a church, don't be scared of parachurch ministries, because sometimes it can be a great service to you and that church ministry.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, and kind of last core value is recognizing the need to support parents and families in our community, where you can feel like a better parent because your kids are here. One of the things that was really, really important to us when we were kind of forming Flow and kind of creating it and planting it was like, our model is Jesus baseline. Like that's what our model is. And adding value to people's lives without any strings attached. It's why 99% of the things that we do are free for the community, because kids don't have money. And 90% of the kids that come to Flow things, their parents are not taking them. They are skating, they are riding, they are taking Uber, they are riding their e-bike, they are walking. Like that's the latchkey kids. Not mom and dad dropping them off at a youth group that's 15 to 20 minutes away from their house, in the evenings. It's just not happening. It's local, like local kids and local families, and so like adding value to families' lives is really, really important. Earning a voice, a trusted voice. One of the things that I teach my staff often is to thank parents for their trust, because that's a big deal. So you'll often hear me and my staff say, like, thank you so much for your trust. Your kid is amazing. We're big on encouraging the parent with what we see in their kid because they hear a lot, or they even like as a parent, you're like, you kind of have a kid under a microscope at times, and you see all the things, and you're like, gosh, I really got to work on that. I got to work on that, and you don't often hear how amazing your kid is from other people, and so we just try and do that, just heap on the love. My buddy Andy Lewis always says, like, dude, those are just like love tokens you're putting in the bank, with those people. Like, they're just opportunities to love in like really simple and tangible ways, just like Jesus, so that when opportunities come, like Rowan, who lost his life to the hands of freaking Billy years ago,
you guys to ask some questions. You heard a little bit about the Heart of Flow. You've obviously experienced it. Questions. I have more to go through if you don't, but.
How do you bring Christ into flow? Like, how do you end up telling the kids about it? Because I mean, I don't know if it's just the camp. I didn't see it that like today that you brought it up. Not a bad thing or anything.
Totally.
Just,
yeah. No, it's a great question. One, we're long game. Mm-hmm. Santa Cruz is long game. So I mean, that's in a nutshell. We're like in a setting like this, because we didn't advertise that we were going to have any talks or anything like that. You'll never see a bait and switch from Flow ever. We did this thing called Only Bangers in, I think it was January, and it's like this video contest and whatnot. And as we're advertising it, letting people know, hey, you're going to hear the Heart of Flow this evening. That right there was enough for us to be like, dude, that's game on for, any kind of talk that we want to get. To us, that wasn't like we're going to get all these people here and then we're going to like hit them with some sort of like biblical truth or like Bible verse or anything like that. Anything that's like advertised as like this fun thing, we're not going to do the like bait and switch. So like our camp isn't a sit down and do like a camp talk kind of camp. It's just not designed that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of our after school programs even are not designed that way. However, some are, like for example, like we have a Shoreline Middle School like youth mentorship program where we walk through an entire school year with like a dozen or so boys. And in that are like, there's monthly adventures that we go on and whatnot. And the focal point of each day has some sort of like either biblical truth or like I see in you, kind of like speaking into moments that often open up like opportunities to share our hope in Jesus with students. So it's not going to happen at every single event. But at every single event, like wholeheartedly believing like, oh, God is present here. And how do you want to use this? Maybe for as like another token that's going to be going in so-and-so's, love bank or whatever. So.
And I'd also say what I saw or have seen in Flow is like with Marcel, he hangs out at the skate park, does like the Flow ministry night or whatever it is. And then I would say your team, from what I've seen, are like purposefully you're one-on-one with those kids. I mean, literally one of the kids calls Marcel dad.
Yeah.
Chase.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing, which is cool to see, like, you actually have taken less of I'm the guy in the front with the mic, and you've actually passed the mic to his staff for them to do.
And all of our staff knows that too. Like, hey man, you see an opportunity. And like, if God is clearly opening up this opportunity for you to have in like one-on-one, oftentimes, thanks for that, by the way, because I was like, oftentimes those happen on the one-on-one rather than like, oh, here's a crowd of 50, I'm gonna hop up and do this talk or whatever for 45 of them that are gonna be like, I'm not really into this and I'm not gonna come back because of it, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So. And then I'd say the other thing, Nick, also, is not that he just has the staff, but even my first time hanging out or the second time when I was back, I was like, hey, can we meet? And you're like, I can meet this time, but I have a meeting at this hour, I have a meeting at this hour. I'm like, whoa, dude, you must be meeting with like bankers and like investors. And he was like, no, it's like teenagers, like middle schoolers from Charlotte. No, I like book my calendar to meet with kids so I can invest in them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Haley.
So, I have a question.
Yes.
How would you say, like, how do you get closer to them? Like, because I have a hard time with getting closer to middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard. How would you say?
Well, I often am drawn to people that there's a likeness towards. So there's a common ground. And even as a 44-year-old, I'm like, oh, there's still common ground in middle schoolers and high schoolers. Cool. That checks out. My front yard definitely checks out. If you see my front yard, it definitely checks out. Like, there are some kids that live here, and maybe a kid that owns the house. I don't know.
It does look like this big kid play.
For sure. So, I think getting one, it takes time. I think getting close, being invited in, being trusted takes time. And it certainly takes empathy, being able to put yourself in other people's shoes, I think is key in, most relationships, right? All relationships, being able to like empathize. And then I spent a lot of time asking God, would you grow my heart? Now that I'm in my 40s, I wrestle a lot less with the people I don't connect with versus the people I do connect with.
I was just gonna say, I feel like I've seen you so comfortable and not needing to connect with everyone.
Yeah, I used to think that, and part of it I think has a lot to do with just my my like church career background. Because I don't know if this has been your experience in like large churches. And I have nothing against large churches. This has just been my experience. I still, speak at large churches often and whatnot, and there's significant partnership there. But in my experience, I felt like I always needed to be the answer guy. And when you already have a thinking narrative that you're a dummy, that is not the move. That is not helpful to think that you need to be the answer guy. And that I needed to be all things to all people. that played way too much into my like people pleasing, like codependent, family dynamics that I grew up with and whatnot. So, yeah, I think I wrestled with that a lot more when I was younger, and I wrestle with it much less now. Maybe to a default at times, where there could be some like, I could like almost digress in a sense, like that I'm not going to connect with that person, so you don't even like try. And then oftentimes, like when I'm like, okay, God, would you have your way? And then he like owns me, and all of a sudden I'm having this fantastic conversation with this person that I wouldn't normally talk to. So,
But I think that's cool for us too. Like we won't always be best friends with everyone, and to be okay with that. And like again, Jesus and Zacchaeus, like being led to the one and being okay, to leave the 99 for the one.
You talked about, we obviously saw Flow Camp today, and then you talked about the skate nights and the after-school programs. What does the day-to-day and the week-to-week ministry look like for Flow outside of what we're seeing this week?
yeah, it's a good question. We have significant partnerships with local schools. So there's after-school programs there, art programs inside the schools, like annual or year-long mentorship programs with schools. There's our work inside juvenile hall on a weekly basis, monthly basis. There are some free lunch programs that we have local for the community. There are our mini skate programs, our free surf programs and lessons. Yeah, there's a lot.
I think what's cool too for me to see, you shared a little bit last night at the barbecue, but if I understand right, I've seen it so vast. It's like surfing, skating, sailing.
Yeah.
You had all sorts of
Yeah.
things that you literally, and yet at the same time, it started by riding your bike and praying through the streets.
Totally.
So I think that's kind of encouraging to me. Sometimes I see this ministry that's doing all these things, and it's like, oh, but it started
for encroaching on your lives. And I just humbled myself, dude. And it was amazing because all of a sudden my energy came back because I was like, I'm not angry at these people anymore. I'm not angry at them. God completely diffused the situation. We had a group hug. It was weird. They bought my kids presents later that Christmas. It was also weird. Yeah.
That's good. It's awesome. Any others, Reagan?
How did you pick out the name Flow?
That's really funny. It's people think, oh, what does flow mean? Is it an acronym for something? It's so not. And because God wastes nothing, seriously. So years and years ago, back in like 2009, Branson 40 Middle School over in Midtown, were going to let us on to do this after school program. They needed a name for it. And I was kind of, bouncing around some ideas. I was like, oh, let's call it Flow, And hopefully, just kind of go with the flow or whatever. That's what it was. And God made it a name that was like, oh no, I'm going to actually, this is going to be an identifying a marker for you. One, because you're going to truly need to go with the flow, because every single week we would show up. I'm coming from, large church background, right? So I'm coming thinking like a large church, youth pastor. And I'm like, they're going to swing open the doors. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have this huge, thing after school. Every week for the first 6 months, the doors to the gym were locked. It was the most deflating thing. I'd be like, guys, we're here. Every week. How do you know that we're not coming? Every week I'd be knocking on the principal's door, hey, can you come? Can you open this up? We're going to have kids here and whatnot. Yeah. So it started out with just this after-school program that we're doing needed a name. And then it became the name of this youth ministry that I started at this church. And when we left, because the name was so closely related to what we were doing, it was just kind of part of the deal, hey, we're going to plant this youth ministry in the community. Can we take our name? And they're like, yeah, that's totally fine. We'll just call our youth ministry something else. So that was that.
That's cool. Yeah, I think we'll go with this one right here. Make it a good one. No, just joking.
Oh gosh.
We got tomorrow too, so.
So as a leader in ministry, and I guess Zane, you could answer this too. And if someone's a volunteer in ministry, because we're all humans who make mistakes. So when you guys have made mistakes in youth ministry with a kid or maybe one of your staff, as far as if it was miscommunication or maybe a decision you made or an action, how do you move forward with that if you either have lost the trust of them or maybe now they're oh, I don't know how you are as a leader, how do you move forward with that? Even if you're a volunteer out of ministry or are a leader of ministry, how would you move forward with that or how have you move forward with that?
Yeah. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes. And oftentimes those mistakes were made because of something that I took personally. And then thus, instead of responding by even consulting the Lord first, I just responded the way that I would respond. And that rarely ever went well. For me, I have been fortunate enough to be able to go to these people and apologize and ask for their forgiveness, own my end of the deal, end of the wound, or the damage that I've done, and then just kind of let it be what it's going to be. And for me as a people pleaser, it's hard to not, after that happened, if there's reconciliation, in the handful of times there's been reconciliation, the couple of times there hasn't been reconciliation, for the times in which there hasn't been reconciliation, I often would go to the not consulting the Lord, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to double down on this then, and I got to really let him know, and it's often doesn't work out,
I would say along the same lines, I stole this from a book, title of a book, but it's called Radical Ownership. And just try to own it.
Yeah.
We had something recently in life school, and I had to radically own it. And just be like, hey, sorry. And that's all I can do. And I think it actually brings me back to where we started, which is the Romans 8:28 passage.
Yeah.
And we know that in the good things, God works for the good. No.
Yeah.
We know that in all things, God works for the good. So thankfully, He's bigger than my failures. He's faithful in them. And I think people hopefully will see that heart. And even if not, then I know this, that for those who God foreknew, He predestined to be conformed to the likeness of His Son. And I think those have even been hard for me to be like, I don't know if life school will continue. I don't know if love and life will last. Like, I'm not promised that. Mm-hmm. That might all fail. But I am promised something. That God will use whatever happens for my good and for His glory. And He will, if I allow Him, He will use those things to make me more like His Son.
Yep.
And so I'll trust the ministry and all the results up to Him. But I know the primary objective is He's forming us into His image, and I get to be part of that. So.
Can I read a prayer?
Yeah, that'd be an awesome way to.
Can I end with this?
Close with that, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, one, I want to share with you guys, whether it's relevant or not. I just want to share with you guys because this is really special. I actually sent I took a snapshot of it this morning, and I'm having a really hard time reading that. So I'm going to grab it from my phone because I know I sent it to my son earlier. And he hearted it, which means a 16-year-old loved it. So that's
that's a win.
That's a big win. All right, that's a big win.
And for those who still have questions, like, wait, I had this burning. Nick will be tomorrow night as well. We'll have a session, and then get to ask more.
Yeah. Psalm 33. Verse 3 through 9, sing to Him a new song, play skillfully and shout for joy. For the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all He does. The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of His unfailing love. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, their starry host by the breath of His mouth. So rich. I'm a big stargazer. I love to geek out over the stars. I have several telescopes. I may not look like a skylurker, but I am a big, huge skylurker. I love it. I love getting lost in the stars. I love that verse. By the word of the Lord, the heavens were made, their starry hosts by the breath of His mouth. He gathers the waters of the sea into jars. Picture that, friends. It's like close your eyes and just like picture that. Or maybe you can open your eyes, I don't know. He gathers the waters of the sea into jars. He puts the deep into storehouses. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the people of the world revere Him. For He spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. Man.
So good. So one of the things we keep talking about is Ephesians 2:10.
Yes. That's my. Yes, go ahead, say it.
I love it. God has prepared us for good works in advance, that we may walk in them. So as you think about the future of your life, if He ordained the stars and He spoke it into existence, then I think He's got us too.
You know what I think about when I hear that verse? One, that's one of my all-time favorite verses, all-time favorite promises, is like the greatest upgrade in all of humanity. Like we are God's masterpieces. And then it's like, Paul or whoever wrote Ephesians is like talking about, like it goes off and like I get this picture, and being a dad, I love being a dad. I love it. I love it. I love it. One of the greatest honors and privileges of my life. I tell my kids all the time, I would be done with everything and just be dad. I would like just be dad. Like I love my family more than I love flow. I do. And my kids know that. And I'm really, really proud of that. But there's that part right afterwards where it's like, God created us for the good things that he planned for us long ago. And I get this picture of this like giddy dad who's so hyped for the things that he's going to be able to get to do with his kids later on in life. It's like all of the like the future dreams that he's going to get, all the future trips, and all the future plans, and all the future like core memories that you guys are going to have together. Those are like, God has that for us. He doesn't just love us, but he likes us. Like God likes you. That's the coolest. That's the absolute coolest. I love that. I trip out on it. It's one of my favorite verses.
So good.
Okay, so can I close in this little prayer? Mm-hmm. All right, this comes from Henry Nouwen from his book, With Open Hands. Dear God, I so much want to be in control. I want to be the master of my own destiny. Still, I know that you are saying, let me take you by the hand and lead you. Accept my love and trust that where I will bring you, the deepest desires of your heart will be fulfilled. Lord, open our hands to receive your gift of love. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sweet, you're free for the rest of the evening.
Dude, that was fun. That was so much better than me just getting up and talking.
Oh, I love that, dude. Thanks
Seriously.
for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yes.
But I need to pee first.
Okay, I'll be here. Well played.
Sweet preface.
Yes.